Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It is May 9th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and it's going to wrap it up for the week. No chart lessons on Fridays. Um, Another kind of wild and crazy day today. We had a huge sell-off early, kind of flattened out here, reversed. And it doesn't surprise me that we reversed because there's a huge gap. This is where we closed yesterday, and this is where we opened at 8:30 today, and that's a big gap. And price charts don't like gaps, so they try to fill them pretty quickly. We couldn't quite get there yesterday. I don't think we were able to get there today either. But we did rally up. There weren't a lot of opportunity to get in this early. I mean, it just took off, and that's what happens. You'll get these, when you get a big sell-off, you'll get these strong rallies, and but they don't always last. They may rally real hard and then reverse again, or we may start off and go down again tomorrow. Um, but it's not uncommon to get strong rallies when you had big sell-offs, especially multiple days sell-offs. So that's pretty common. So be prepared for it. Um, there's actually a couple of setups here on my chart, but I didn't get very good signal bars. And, most of you know that I believe in using your signal bar. And sometimes it'll cause you to miss a trade, but I guarantee it's filtered me out of a lot of bad trades by waiting on a good signal bar. So I'm going to back out. We'll talk about the trades, and we'll wrap it up. First thing I would have done was we had this one leg down, and right in here, right around 7 o'clock or so is when we started the next leg down. And so I would have measured this first leg like so, and come over here and look for your second leg. That would have got you real close. You can see, well, we'll just see how close it got us. I don't think we quite, or actually we actually overshot it just a little bit by a point or so. You can see we tested that level a few times and then reversed and went the other direction. So that would have been a great target. You actually had a little room to spare on that one. So I usually tell people try to get out a little bit in front of the target in case it bounces early, just to make sure you get out. Don't try to squeeze out every single tick, because if you get greedy, it will often cost you. So on a move that long, a leg that long, if you can get a piece of this, a nice piece of it, be happy with that. So don't try to squeeze every tick out of it, because sometimes you won't get it and it'll reverse on you and you'll be in trouble. But 7 o'clock came right in here. This bar was already pretty much formed when I kind of got here, so I kind of missed that. But if you were already trading, you might have traded that. If you drew your trend line off those first two, this one sets up nicely. Lower high, it actually broke higher and turns down, big bearish bar. So you may take that one if you're here. It's a couple of minutes early. I generally don't like to trade before 7. But, a few minutes on either side of 7 o'clock or 2 o'clock won't necessarily kill you. But then you came back again here and had your failed second entry long, your reversal type pattern, so I like it. Nice little bearish bar. So that was a quick early morning trade. And if you caught that one trade, you probably would have had a runner, and that might have been the only trade you needed for today. We moved down nicely off this. I mean, there's I forget how many points that is. It's about a 10-point move, I believe, 8 or 10 points, something like that. And if you catch a runner on that, you might have a pretty good day there. So anyway, we try to rally, and this was a little breakout area. Notice we got a little congestion. We came back to test it once. Let me back out a little more. This is still a little bit hard to see. But we came back there, we tested this once, and then we tested it twice, and look at that big bearish bar. I like going short there. And you can tell we're kind of going sideways by that point. And where we bounce right off the low. There's a double test here. That bar is too neutral in my opinion, especially in a downtrend. I think you're better off to just wait and see if you get another down chance to trade down. And you do have that right here. This is another one. It's really a double bar here, but these have matching highs, so you could still use that as your signal bar. This bar is too bullish, so I didn't mark this one, but it is off a key entry point. It is a relatively bearish bar and a little 2-bar matching high. So, and it is right off the key entry point. So that one is one. At the time I was trading this morning, I didn't feel comfortable with it, but looking back on it, that's probably a trade you should take. You got plenty of room to get out. It is a lower high after a triple top there. It's a bearish bar. It's just a first entry though, and so at the time I wasn't that crazy about it, but looking back on it, I probably, that's a trade you probably want to take. You get a little breakout pullback short here, but you close back inside the range. If you'd have closed outside with a bearish bar, I'd sit maybe on that one. And then we're just bouncing down the trend line. We don't come back to the other trend line until here. There's a second entry short, but look how bullish that bar is. You do get a lower high right here, but now look at all that congestion, and you would have got burned right there if you'd went long, went short. And we make it. This looks like a little reversal pattern, but we haven't had a close outside that trend line yet. And you can see how we gapped over that trend line. That always tells you probably got your trend line in the right place. It did end up backing up over it, but it closed on its high, opened on its low, but it did end up backing up a tick at some point. But I did like this short right here. It's a second entry short. I kind of went back and forth with this one because technically that's your signal bar, and this is really an inside bar, and you got to be really careful with those. But with that being the first break after a big move down like that, and also the fact that it's a second entry short. Look at that low, first entry, second entry. So it's a second entry short. It's the first break of your trend line. You're a good bit away from the EMA, so you got a lot of room to come back there, plenty of room to scalp out before you get back. There's a lot of reasons to like that trade, especially when you didn't have many good entries down through here. I like that one. It's real close to being green. You could argue for it to be green, but I think there's enough reasons there in a strong downtrend, a second day in a row, to probably take that trade. And of course, we come down here to the lows and we just start. We can't get through those lows. There's too much support right there. There's too much buying coming in. Actually, there's not enough buying to really reverse it. So there's still got to be some heavy selling, but there's just enough buying to keep it from going lower. And if it bounces there long enough, it could reverse. So you got to be real careful right here. So couldn't get that word out of there for some reason. But anyway, we do get a little few failed break lower, but the trend has been down, and you've had a break, and now you got a new low. So you could think about going long. This one right here is one that you could argue for. Notice that low, failed break lower, then you try to go lower once, twice. It fails, gives you a bullish bar. So that is another one that you could consider. But with no more bounce out of there than that, and everything still closing below the EMA, I'd be very leery of that. I'll mark it green, but same thing here. Now you got a failed second entry short because that's a little double bottom. But look, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars stacked up, several of them dojis. We're just not taking off like you should. So even though that would have worked, I'd probably skip it. And then I would draw my trend line off those two swings, and then of course we come back and test it again. But again, signal bar is too neutral. Then you get another neutral signal bar. Wait and see if you get a lower high and a failed second entry long, and that comes here, and it actually broke higher there and turned and went out the other side. I like going short there. You got to be a little concerned about the amount of room to get out, but at this point I would have moved this on down for sure. Really your supported move down to here, and when you do that, you probably got enough room there. But that's something you definitely need to think about. My idea would be go short one tick below this bar since it broke higher and turned down. You lose a tick by waiting for that bar to close, and that might, that one tick might be enough to change everything. So just something to consider there. And you can see this turned out to be a really good trade here. But you don't know that it couldn't bounce. It tried to bounce right in there again. Actually, notice that's kind of the low point now, and that's where we tried to bounce a little bit, but it pushed on through. This one's real tempting, just down here at the low, a little overshoot being that far away. But when you start trying to pick bottoms, you can often get yourself in big trouble. So it actually went lower and turned and went out the other side, and we're way overdue with this trend. This is like a little spiking channel, and we haven't had a break of it yet. So even though we're a long way away, you still got to be a little bit worried about it. But notice we come back, we finally get a break, we get two legs up to a new high, and then we make a lower high with a really bearish bar. Like that's the better place to enter and in the right direction. So I like going short there. This one I marked it. It's a failed second entry long. Again, this has probably moved down some now, but again, you've got that support right across there, and you got to be leery of that. So you really could argue against this one. You know, it's kind of risky for the fact that we've had a close outside and two legs down already, and this is right in here where your measured move was. So going short right here, we probably should at least make that one green. It's real close, and you could argue for it either way. You know, when you bounce off the midline that many times, you're probably going lower. But the problem is you just got so much support across there. If all that support wasn't there and you had plenty of room to get out, I'd say take that one. So depending on how your chart sets up here, that would depend on how I traded that one. So, of course, just what you expect, what you're worried about having happens is we bounce. You get a higher low here, but you know, it's right back into this red trend line, which is now in play. It's tempting really to go short right there, but notice that trend line working up, and that's the first close outside. So there's always the chance you shoot back up and try to make a high, and that's what happened. It's tempting again to go short right there, but there's a lot of overlap. You got to understand why we're probably forming congestion there is because we're way overdue. There's still some buying coming in, people chasing the market, but at the same time we're overdue to come back, and so it kind of gets hung there for a minute while the buyers and sellers kind of work their way out of there, and then suddenly you got more sellers and you got buyers and the bottom drops again. So I'd wait on a lower high here, and notice what happens. You come down, you go right through the EMA, you go right through the trend line, you pull back and test the EMA and turn back down, and you actually break higher above this bar, then turn and go out the other side. I'd go short one tick below that, and you could even go short one tick below that bar. I wouldn't be afraid of that, but that's a fairly big bar, and you really only save one tick there by waiting for it to close, so I'd still be okay with that. But that is a big bar, I'd have to say. But there's a pretty good chance this thing's going lower. It's the first break of this two-tiered brown channel. And let me back out just a second so you can see it. And you can see that's the first break, and now we're back inside closing. We're probably, you would expect prices to try to work back down to the low, definitely to the midline. And we move on down, and now we get a break of this trend, and you get a first entry, and then a second entry, and another nice, really bearish bar, and almost basically a double top there. So I like going short there. When it didn't go anywhere and turns back, and it actually went higher here and turned and went out the other side, but it's right into those lows. I'd wait and see if you don't get a lower high again and a failed second entry. And you do get that here, but now it really looks, I just sit tight, and you can see that it just kept kind of going sideways. It went a little bit lower than the previous. Actually, it didn't go lower. It closed lower, which that still tells you something, but you can see it ends up bouncing. It comes back up, but it does make a lower high. So if we start lower again, I would measure that first leg, measure right there, and look for a measured leg. And then I would also measure the whole thing in case it continues to go lower, and then that would be your secondary target. You can see we still went a little further than that, but that turns out to be a nice move. But anyway, we bounce here. You could, I would say if this was more, if we hadn't had such a strong downtrend, you might consider going long there, just because when you bounce that many times, it does go long. Come back, you make a lower high. Again, some of these signal bars are huge too, so you got to take those into consideration. But we make that lower high, and it's right off that key entry point. This makes a nice move down. And I think we actually make a new low there. It's real close. Yeah, you can see we finally made a new low there. And we reversed out of there. So even though it doesn't quite look like it, you get your break and two legs down, two measured legs down to a new low, and now we're reversing. So if you get a reversal pattern, you may consider it. Notice that low, you're moving up first entry, then you move up new second entry, it fails. I'm not crazy about it, just because it's such a big signal bar. You don't have a whole lot of room here. It's possible there's another trend line up through here, but it does close. I mean, you do break back above the EMA, so it meets our criteria. I at least made it green. Notice we did make a new low there. It's this swings lower than that one. So first entry, second entry. Now you got a failed second entry short and another chance to go long. But there's a little bit of congestion there, a little bit of resistance. You're going long right into the highs right there, and that's that's about as high as prices have been for a long time. So since earlier in the morning, so it's a little bit risky, but if you could get in this one, I'd probably take it, especially with it looking like it's right off a midline. Of course, you may not have had that yet. That would be a little hard to find at that point because there's nothing clear on this side, and you really can't find your swing until it makes this low right here. So that's just a bounce off the EMA more than anything right there. It's not really a bounce off that midline, even though you can see that now. You couldn't have seen that earlier this morning. Sometimes if you're really good, there's other ways to find this, but I don't see that on this particular channel. So it's very doubtful you'd have had that midline. I'm almost sure you probably wouldn't have had it. But anyway, you might have even looked at this more shorter term here, and it would have been off that trend line, which that gives it a little more, because there is a shorter term one inside here, what you're looking at right here now. So right there. And it would have been a bounce off that and the EMA, so that's another reason to like that one. You still got to be concerned about that congestion across there and all those matching highs and so forth. And of course, we come back, and then you're moving up again, and you pull back and you get a higher low, and it actually breaks lower and turns and goes out the other side. Pretty good chance we're probably going high now. I'd be looking for a measured move after this. Measure that move right there and come back to here, and that gives you a target right in here. When you say we went much further than that, but look, notice where it's to as well. It's to the other side of the trend channel, which is where we got to, but we touched it and turned back down there. So we do come back to the trend line. It's a shame here, and there's a second entry long here too. If you had a better signal bar than this would have been the right trade, and you could have caught that one easily and got a runner. Unfortunately, on my chart, it's not a very good signal bar. Not a very good signal bar at all. So. It's a dead doji. Actually, it's more bearish. It's not even quite a doji. It's one tick. I think if it was up one tick, it'd be a doji, but it's more. It closed in the lower half of the bar versus in the middle. So I just, I'm not going to take that trade. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Is that I use that to filter my trades. And every once in a while you'll miss a trade like here, but more often than not, it's going to get you into a good trade. Then we run up to the high side. This is a failed break out of a tight congestion, which we talked about this lately. A lot of times these lead to really good trades, and it did it once again today. Um, but the reason I don't like this one is we just came off the high, and so we should be headed back here. Just like here we were on the high and we came back. Here we're on the high, and you would expect it to come back, but it doesn't. You could argue for that to be green, but it's a little bit risky right there. It is right off the EMA, which that's a key entry point as well, but it's too big a chance that comes back up, touches, and drops down one more time. We do get a higher low here, which is real tempting as well, but that's right back into the highs, right back into the midline. But then we push through, pull back, and you get a breakout pullback long. So I like that one. It's a failed second entry short. It's a breakout pullback long. You got a nice signal bar. It's right off the midline. There's a lot of reasons to like that one. There's also a little short-term trend line working up through there. It's the third touch and the confirmation of it. So there's several different reasons to like that trade right there. And this one takes on off. It comes back to the midline again. You could even argue for this one, but we're overdue to come back here, so I'm a little hesitant to that one. It's another one you could argue, say, hey, should maybe be green, because it's been a strong rally and a strong trend. So, and we didn't quite get back up to the higher side there either, so we could try one more time. That's what will happen a lot of times. We actually overshot it here before we reversed. So, you don't want to be chasing the market way up here. Even though it continues to go higher, you just can't take those trades because they work this time, but the next time you chase them, you will get burned. Trust me. You just can't you got to watch it go without you. If you didn't get in down here and catch a runner, you just have to watch these moves go without you. There's no safe way to enter those. And so we get the big overshoot. Now we're back inside. Not a very good signal bar. Still above the EMA. And you really just don't get another chance to enter this one till way down here. And you can't enter down here. Again, now you're just going sideways, congestion. Stay out of that. There was a failed break lower here. But look at all those matching highs. Again, you might catch that major low, but in this case, with all those matching highs and 3 or 4 bars stacking up, just wait on a higher low. Now, you get one here, but again, it's not really a breakout pullback. You're still inside. There's not much room there, but let's just see if it comes back again, and if it does, like it does here, now you could go long. Now you got a second entry. You actually broke a little below the last low there. It's a failed second entry short. Notice that low, first entry, second entry. Counting from the high, pullback first entry, pullback second entry. And so that's the better place to enter. Then we come over here and you made a new low there. So this is a failed, when it broke higher right here, that's a failed second entry short too. It's also 2 legs back. The signal bar is not very good, but in this case, it's a failed second entry short, so it works similar to a trap, so it doesn't quite matter. And that would probably help push it on up higher, even though you've got a couple of highs that are not much higher there. I'd feel comfortable with that one just because it's a trap. And you can see how once it reverses, how it takes off there. And that's because people have to start exiting. It's what traps do. It doesn't go very far, though, and then we're working back down again. And really, there's 2 legs here. There's actually a couple swings in that first leg, and then your second leg down. So technically, on a larger picture, this is a second entry long. If it was a double test, I'd say take it, but I'd look at this like your first. There's really a touch here, but I'd look at this really as your first touch. So you don't get a double test until over here. That bar is too bearish. You finally make a higher low right here, though, and it's still an inside bar from this one, but it's still, notice that low, first entry, second entry. So it's a failed second entry short again, and really it's a second entry long as well. So it's very similar to this setup right here. It's like a repeat almost. So I'm okay with that one. I like that one. And look at it go. and then we run up, we make a lower high, it looks like it's going to be a failed second entry short, and then it looks like it's going to be some kind of short trap, and then next thing you know it's turning back down again and it's a long trap. And really there's a failed second entry long there, but I'd wait on another entry, and you get that here. It's not a lower high, but that's a bear. That bar is bearish enough when this is your first close, and that's just a little two-legged correction, so it's a form of a second entry short, and that takes on off. You get a lower high here, but too many stems and stuff right in there. It would have worked, but again, I don't think you want to take it. You get a failed second entry long right here, but you've bounced now 2 times really quickly. I would just wait. You don't really want to go long there, but you just have to be real careful about getting short. There's actually, I don't have it on here either, but you actually have to consider that there's something coming up right here as well. And that kind of confirms it right there. But that, like I said, that bar is just, it's just a little too bullish with all that sideways in there. You could argue for that one if you were looking at this trend line. I definitely wouldn't take that one. I may take that one, but this is really your signal bar, and that's the problem with that one. This is not a signal bar. So I'm a little leery of that, even though it comes off that key entry point, possible key entry point. I'm just not crazy about it. So, but you finally get this little 2 swing back. It's a failed second entry short, and it does confirm that little trend line working up right there. It's not a great signal bar. It's mostly bullish, but there's still some stem, and there's really a second entry long hidden in there as well. So it's a possibility. I marked it green. Once you get up here, you're too close into these highs up here. It's double top. And that was pretty much it. That took you into 2 o'clock. There is a lower high here after a double test. This one is tempting. I'd definitely wait on the lower high, which came here. And I'm not as crazy about it because you got a low here and a low here, and you really just don't have enough room to get out. But you're coming, after trying that 3 times, it's possible that you ought to at least make another leg down here. And so I'd probably measure that leg right there. Come over here and look for at least a measured leg down. And you got way more than that. So, and that got us in the 2 o'clock hour. So these are not easy days to trade. I'm just going to tell you, there's lots of trades in here. And a lot of times you're better off just to sit tight until you get something that bounces, a good signal bar that bounces off your key entry point. And I'm sure on some of these charts, there were some better trade. I mean, this was where you really needed to try to get long in here. And on my chart, it just didn't set up. But hopefully, maybe some of your charts looked a little better and you had a little better opportunity to get long in there. Because that's where most of this movement originated from. This is where you want to try to be getting long, not way up here when it starts to, everything's starting to slow down up here, and that's where you get burned if you're not careful. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, back out here where you can see it a little better. Again, it was strongly down, then strongly up, and then kind of flat after that. So most of your trading came before noon today, and then afternoon it was just a bunch of chop over here. So we're really back in a range here, and most of your support, or most of your resistance is up here, and most of your support was across here. So, but anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the week, and no chart lesson tomorrow. We'll be back on Monday. Just trying to think if there was anything else. It seemed like there's something else I wanted to mention, but I can't think of it at the moment. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it Monday. I hope you had a good week. Hope you have a great weekend. Mother's Day is this weekend, so for those of you who still have your mothers, appreciate them, and we'll be back Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.